Good evening, and welcome to the September 12th, 2022 Education Committee and Supplementary Regular Board Meeting of the Lower Merion Board of School Directors. The board believes it is in its best interest and the best interest of the students of the district to hear comments from district residents. An opportunity will be given later in the meeting for public comment, both in person and through the chat feature, which will be read by Ms. Buckman. This meeting is being live streamed and video recorded with sound for public broadcast. All participants joining via Zoom will be muted upon entry. So thank you all for coming tonight. I'm going to turn over the microphone to Dr. Mameen, who's going to give some updates to the start to the school year.
Yes, thank you so much, President Klein. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, fellow board members. This year is a very exciting year. I believe that we are embarking on some very good things for the district as we push towards really continuing to bring our strategic plan to life. We had an exciting opening, two great openings with our new staff. There were some professional development activities, and then our formal opening day staff meeting, which was excellent. Our staff is very energetic and encouraged to continue to do the greater good for our students here in Lower Merion School District. It is so exciting, and I don't want to monopolize the meeting time by talking about what I've seen throughout the buildings thus far that I've visited. Happy faces, students are eager to learn. Students are eager to get involved this school year, and it's very exciting. A couple of updates I want to mention because we've been talking about some things through the Education Committee as well as the full board meetings in regards to some major topics. We've been talking about the 5 competing forces or 5 big things that we really want to accomplish over the next few years. And 2 of those items, healthy start times and also full day kindergarten, as we've been talking at the close of last year, that we were looking at or examining a process to be able to bring committees together, reestablish communication with our advisory committees, and that's more so for healthy start times, and to be able to bring these plans to fruition over the school year. A quick update for healthy start times, we will be convening or reconvening the advisory committee that did a lot of incredible work around the topic of healthy start times. And I say reconvening the advisory committee, and this will happen in early October because we don't want to get into a process where we're reinventing the wheel. There has been a lot of work done, and we're just going to find out, we're going to discuss where we left off and continue our planning from that point forward. So when the opportunity presents itself, we will bring healthy start times, one of those priority areas, over the finish line. Secondly, we've been talking about full day kindergarten. And so we are planning to put a survey out in October, early October, and convene a committee around healthy start times. Now, full day kindergarten, my apologies, around full day kindergarten. And with that, there will be a communication coming out in the near future, this week, early next week, that will have a list of committees that will be asking for stakeholder involvement. So 1, we can create a committee around full day kindergarten, and 2, we're looking for participants in our wellness committee, which is an area which we've been focusing on, of course, the past couple of school years, but the conversation about having parents and constituents on these committees, that is coming to fruition, and that will be also on a list of committee engagements and opportunities for stakeholders to get involved. I would like to make one public announcement around that. This is a good problem to have. Usually when we put out invitations for committee participants, we get an overwhelming response. And we can't have committees of 100 people. So there will be a selection process that we'll go through to select the committee members. However, and this is something that we heard loud and clear, if there are constituents, parents who are not parents and guardians who are not selected for committees, that does not close the door on communication for you. You will be updated. You will still be able to participate by providing input to the committee. So as we design our work and do our work around full-day kindergarten, let me restate, in the Wellness Committee, let me restate again, for healthy start times, this will be a reconvening of the advisory committee that presently exists. So that option will not be available in regards to volunteering for that committee, because a lot of the work has been done. We have to really finalize some pieces in those plans, and that's mostly around operational pieces, transportation, facilities, timing, and also still looking at the variables around the lights on Arnold Field. All that stuff is going to be presented in a public fashion, so there will be no gaps in communication there. We want to make sure we're out in the open around these areas. With that said, and I opened up by saying this is a good problem to have around committee work. We're very excited and encouraged to have the collaboration and, of course, the feedback of our community as we work through two of these five major areas, and we're very excited. I think that this is going to be a great school year for us. It's always a great school year in Lower Merion School District, but I'm saying this is exciting that we're able to really talk about these major issues, bring them out in the public eye, and get to a point where we're ready to implement when that time presents itself. Yes, thank you. Man, President Klein is on it. Also, I am so excited to sit here as we step out amongst the Commonwealth as leaders in the area of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. That is huge for us, and we've been getting some positive feedback, not only in my circles around the Commonwealth, but also within the district from our staff, our new staff, especially new staff who are coming to us from other school districts. This is exciting work to embark upon. Belonging is as inclusive as it gets. We know that diversity, equity, and inclusion is very, it spans over a lot of areas and it's inclusive, but belonging really creates that synergy around the work that we do in the school district, and we're very excited to embark in that area of belonging, whereas we have a new seal that we're presenting with belonging. It's a school. It's a school that has D, E, I, and B, which really frames the way we will go about our work in the school district this year and in coming years. A very exciting venture, and we've already had districts that have copied belonging. We just put it out, and we've been talking about it, and districts are starting to latch on because it is extremely inclusive, and it really speaks to the breadth of work and professionalism that our team has around helping all of our students succeed in the district. So I'm very excited to be able to speak on that just for a couple of moments. It's going to be an exciting year in LMSD. I'm so excited and encouraged by this, and I'm missing one thing. Also, I wanted to provide an update because we had a policy meeting on Friday, and we had two remarkable scholars, two remarkable young men, Sam and Owen, who attended the meeting around the student voter registration initiative that they're trying to get into policy. I had the opportunity, along with Dr. McGloin and Mrs. Schaefer today, and also Principal Weinstein from Harriton High. We were able to meet with Sam and Owen today to follow up and to somewhat speak to them about their concerns that they expressed on Friday. We're in a very good place in regards to student voter registration. We spoke very overtly in regards to how policy is approved in the school district. That process is happening. Meanwhile, where Sam and Owen had concerns was that could their activities still take place while the policy is going through the first and second reading on its way to approval? And the answer is yes. We were able to sit there today in the meeting and design and start to talk about how they want to go about their programming. And what was very encouraging about it was the opportunity that they've already planned. Sam and Owen have done a great job of how they are making the connection with with Lower Merion High School, where the same activities exist. And so they just wanted to be, they wanted to make sure that they were in a good place or a good space to be able to conduct their activities while the policy is going through its formal process, which is necessary to go through the process. So I wanted to say loud and clear, and they understood it today, even though the policy is not completed yet, it will be completed and it will become policy. There's a process. Meanwhile, there still will be student voter registration activities taking place within the next couple of weeks. So we're very excited about that. And again, hats off to Sam and Owen for taking on this huge initiative. And I tell you, they come to the meeting so prepared, so eloquent, so very, very structured in their approach. They have great ideas, and we are excited to bring those ideas to fruition here in the district. So very exciting times in Lower Merion, very exciting. And that completes my update. I don't want to monopolize the time this evening because I could speak for hours on what I've seen, how I feel, how staff is feeling, how students are feeling. This is a great, great, great year on the horizon. And lastly, for the second time, as I see Sarah Stout in the audience, and yes, it has been an exciting opening at Black Rock Middle School, which is, again, something that we should all be proud of. That took a lot of work from all areas of the school system, from parents to administration, to school board, to the teachers in the classroom and support staff and transportation. It has been cafeteria staff. It's been extremely exciting. So we're very happy and proud of Black Rock Middle School. And as things are completed, we call it the punch list. As the punch list is completed, we're going to have a building that we'll be proud of for years to come. So I wanted to say thank you to Mrs. Stout publicly for her leadership at Black Rock Middle Schools, because when we say principal, we know principals have a mammoth amount of responsibilities within the building. But when you're opening a new building, the building principal is a part of all of the planning of that building. From all of the aspects that I mentioned, transportations, facilities, and of course, academics and personnel. And Sarah has done a remarkable job of really continuing to complete her own punch list of items for that building. So again, Sarah, hats off and thank you, and you deserve a round of applause. And that's it, President Klein. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and, but I'm going to hand it right back over to, if you could introduce our presentations for the evening.
Yes, thank you so much. This evening, we have two presentations. One is the Technology Integration K-12 presentation, and also we have the Achievement Imperative Task Force update. We'll begin this evening with Dr. Gaudioso, who has a team with her this evening, Jennifer Goldberg and Kimberly Phillips. Dr. Gaudioso.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. So we're here to talk today about the district's curriculum and education vision for technology integration K-12, how it supports pathways of our strategic plan, as well as our district equity goals. And we know that coming out of the pandemic, which forced technology use in all sorts of new ways, and left us all, as you know, those of us who are parents wrestling with screen time at home, more so than ever before. One of the things that we felt it was really important to do was to reorient and recontextualize the critically important place that technology plays in support of learning. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm flipping. Excellent. Okay. All right. So here you have a timeline. And if you think back to, school ages ago, you can see the evolution of tools in the classroom. And critical turning points occurred when we didn't just replace or substitute old tools for new, where we took a pencil and we changed it into a typewriter and then into a keyboard, or we took a chalkboard and we changed it into a whiteboard or an overhead projector, or a digital projector. That would just be substitution. So there's a framework for thinking about the place of technology in a classroom. Substituting more technical tools is one piece of it, augmenting and improving those tools, and student experience is a piece of it. The place where it starts to get really exciting is where we are moving into the realm of modifying learning, modifying tasks, and you can think of that in ways where all of a sudden things that were not possible are now possible because of the technology. So when you think of increased access for students through more shared participation, more equitable, accessible access points for all students, differentiation, all of those elements of the strategic plan where we have students having multiple pathways to demonstrate learning. That's where we have highest levels of technology integration, and we're doing more than just substituting, but we are transforming learning. And that's in support of the strategic plan. So one reason we thought it was important to start with a timeline here is many people may perceive that technology in education, it was really just this COVID boom, when in fact there has been a long-standing movement toward highly effective technology integration in the district. If you look back to 2012, you can see that as early as, well, first the high school initiative, the one-to-one initiative in the high school was 2007. As early as 2012, we had one-to-one devices in kindergarten. So when you think about the ways that devices were supporting learning in the classroom, we've been at it a long time. And we're getting better and better, and we have certain guidelines and frameworks that we follow to ensure that we're using tools effectively to support students and student learning. Now, the best practices in education, certainly, it raises a question about what is our guidance. So I'm going to share with you a couple of the guiding resources that administrators and school leaders refer to often. One is the 2017 Horizon Report, and this has multiple iterations. The reason we're sharing 2017 is, one, it's pre-COVID, and two, it's about 5 years ago. And this report looks at a 5-year horizon of emerging technologies likely to impact learning. And what's exciting about that is at this 5-year mark in 2022, many of the things predicted to impact learning and make a difference in the classroom are things that many of you will find familiar, or as you think about what we were sharing in the K-4 and 5-8 vision for reimagination. Now, one of the things I just want to point out is these tools and this vision is a K-12 vision. So these frameworks, these tools and resources, and the ways that technology supports learning are K-12. A lot of what we're going to share with you in terms of specific examples tonight tend to be K-8, and we did that intentionally with the idea that you often hear, especially since the one-to-one in high school has been since 2007, and many may wonder now that the one-to-one initiative is in K-8, and that's more recent, folks may have just more wondering about what it looks like in those younger years. So some of those examples you'll see K-8. The ISTE student standards. Now the ISTE student standards, ISTE standards are for both teachers and educators. They provide guidance in 5 areas for teachers, for students, for leaders, coaches, and computational thinking. And they've been around for somewhere at least 10 years or more. And you'll hear about those a little bit more from our tech integrators who are with me tonight. But the ISTE competency-based resources help us think about skills that students need, as well as competencies of teachers and leaders to guide the work. One of the other resources we use often, and we did a lot of work with our administrative curriculum team, and that is the Bold School Framework. This is a valuable tool for instructional decision-making, and we'll share a little bit more about that later, but we want to emphasize the role of the teacher as the decision-maker. And that's really a critical role that teachers play because they are ensuring that technology is meaningfully integrated and has a valuable impact on learning. And finally, our own policies guide us to consider technology integration in terms of student needs, access, opportunities. Now, these are best practices, and all things best practice. We're in a learning progression, getting better and better, but these resources are guides. And we're sensitive more than ever in this post-COVID world to social emotional learning needs of students, social and community relationship building, and technology integration is not at the expense of that priority. In fact, many designed technology experiences are active, engaging, and often highly collaborative in support of learning. And we'll show you a couple of the learning spaces and a couple examples that will help you picture what that looks like. Remember to tell myself next slide. So these are a couple trends from the Horizon report, and these are the areas I was mentioning may feel familiar to you if you've been following the reports and updates on the K to 8, K to 4, and then 5 to 8 reimagination. Advancing cultures of innovation, deeper learning, which you'll hopefully be connecting to are the problem-based learning experiences, the interdisciplinary learning, growing a focus on measuring learning. When you think of our strategic plan and the idea of multiple pathways for students to demonstrate what they know, and having different ways for them to have choice as well in demonstrating what they know. Redesigning the learning spaces so that technology is seamlessly integrated, differentiation happens, students have high degrees of inclusion and access. Looking at coding as literacy, and that's something that's embedded in our STEM course as well as through teacher classrooms. And the rise of STEAM learning, and that would be science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And the idea of art and maker spaces and cross-disciplinary excitement is something that we're looking forward to growing more and more. So joining me today are Jen Goldberg and Kim Phillips, two of our K-8 technology integrators who are going to share what some of that technology integration looks like in K-8 classrooms, keeping in mind a lot of the same would be true in 9 to 12.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name's Kimberly Phillips, and I am the Middle School Technology Integration Specialist. The first trend that we're looking at is the advancing cultures of innovation. And throughout today's presentation, we knew it was imperative that you heard from our teachers. So you'll see in videos embedded in this presentation that will show the passion and excitement our teachers have towards technology integration. I'm going to share some examples of how technology can advance education. Some different ways you can see this is first through our habits of mind. Students can exhibit those habits of mind like taking responsible risks and thinking flexibly when working on those technology integration pieces. Teachers are purposeful when they integrate technology. Some ways are using flipped learning environments. And what a flipped learning environment would mean is when a teacher records a lesson ahead of time and has the students play it and answer embedded questions. When the students enter the class the next day, the teacher has an idea of where the students are and where their needs need to be. So learning can be personalized and differentiated each day. Another way teachers use technology is through discussion boards and our tools like Google Apps for Education, those collaborative and communicative ideas that allow students to communicate and collaborate across many different classroom settings. Many teachers also utilize digital portfolios, and digital portfolios really emphasize that whole child. It allows us to focus on character development, grit, and encourages learners to work hard for their goals and bring them to fruition. It offers some alternatives to summative assessment and validates students' learning in an authentic way. Teachers also use technology to provide students timely feedback, and that is a high-yield strategy for student achievement, and technology makes that feedback happen instantaneously for our students, which is fantastic. I'm now going to move on to our deeper learning approaches. And when speaking about deeper learning approaches, one theme stands out, and that's problem-based learning. We've been seeing a shift from that passive to active learning to help students develop original ideas, improve their information retention, and build those higher order thinking skills. And approaches that include these are problem-based learning and inquiry-based learning activities. These encourage creative problem solving and actively implementing solutions. So for the past 3 years, a committee of teachers led by Nancy Acasio-Mesa have been researching and developing problem-based learning in elementary, and that continues in our K-12 programming. And this model offers transdisciplinary learning. It breaks down the silos of just one subject area and allows for a well-rounded approach, which is vital for our students' real-world skills. I'm going to pass it on to Jen to introduce our next teacher speaker.
Good evening. I'm Jen Goldberg, the elementary technology specialist. And we couldn't bring teachers in. It's very early in the start of the school year, but I was able to capture a short video. So I'm going to let the video sort of speak for itself.
Hi, my name is Marita McCarthy, and I teach general vocal music at Marion Elementary in grades 1 through 4. And I am here to talk about something that really makes me excited, and that is technology integration into the classroom. And Lower Marion has made incredible strides in this area over the past several years. One, for example, I'm the music teacher, and so I would have a limited number of computers available to me. So anytime we use computers or devices, students would always be in groups. They would be in groups 2 to 4, depending upon the number of students, the number of devices, the technology we were using. Now I'm able to differentiate and make those decisions based on not just the number of devices and students I have, but on the project or the technology. And many times students are able to make those choices themselves. So because another really exciting change has been the systematic implementation of platforms like Google Classroom and Seesaw. And these have enhanced student experiences and reduced classroom management issues all around technology. Now students have familiarity with these common platforms, so I no longer have to teach them how to use the platform in class. Instead, they are using these platforms as intended from the very beginning because I don't have to teach them how to use them. And this saves valuable class time, and it really ensures that students are engaged in curriculum goals for a longer period of time. Another amazing time saver is that students across grade levels are able to connect quickly and go directly to these creative tools or learning activities that I have set up because they're posted in places that are really easy for them to navigate. So these integrations, the one-to-one program, the systematic use of Google Classroom and Seesaw and some of the other incredible platforms have been a true game changer for the classroom. And I really believe that we're truly able to use technology as a tool to enhance learning. And so I'm so glad I had this opportunity to tell all of you about the exciting technology enhancements the Lower Marion School District has made and how I have excitedly used them in my classroom. Thanks so much. Bye.
Her enthusiasm is pretty contagious, isn't it? So what you see on this slide here illustrates actual photos from her classroom. This actually comes from my Twitter feed, so if you don't follow me on Twitter, feel free. But this comes from my Twitter feed from last spring. And what you're seeing here is, you're seeing in the top picture, you're seeing students learning how to play the recorder. You're looking at students following along with the notes printed on the screen, and they're practicing a song. The picture on the right illustrates students looking at short video clips of the teacher showing proper hand positioning so they can learn new notes. And in the bottom picture, you're seeing students matching notes to the musical staff. What you don't see is a fourth group of students who is meeting one-on-one with the teacher to perform the songs that they've learned. In addition, another piece that you don't see is that students who maybe weren't successful during this class period or were absent during this class period, who didn't advance, so the idea is that they play songs and they advance different levels. And if a student was unsuccessful or wasn't there for that particular lesson, they are given the opportunity to record themselves performing on Seesaw. And so between that week, because they have music only once a week, so if they come on Monday and they miss their class or they didn't perform as appropriate or what they were needed to do, they can practice and they can record themselves anytime during the week, play the song for the teacher, and then come in next Monday and be back on pace with the rest of the students. So it allows for multiple methods for instructional delivery, and it allows for a much greater student understanding.
In our next example, you'll see both deeper learning approaches and a growing focus on measuring learning. New technologies are allowing us to further explore and evaluate tools used to measure students' achievement, and we're seeing how these tools really empower teachers to make data-informed choices in their instruction. I'm going to introduce to you Ashley Brem, a math specialist at Welsh Valley Middle School.
Hi, Ashley Ream, Walsh Valley Middle School. A few ways that we have used technology in order to enhance our lessons here. One thing that has been beneficial in the pandemic and coming out of the pandemic is the use of our Wacom tablet. It has allowed us to move away from teaching at the board and be able to intermix with our students, talk with them instead of talking at them during the lessons, use close proximity if we've had some issues with, some attention or focus, and again, still being able to deliver our dynamic lessons using this tablet. So it's been, again, a game changer for us. Some other ways that we have used technology, Google Forms has also been great for us. One way that we've changed up our practice or reviewing for different topics is some escape rooms that we've done with pairs of students or some small groups. This one is where they were using their skills in our Math 8 classroom in order to unlock Disney using 1-, 2-step equations and multi-step equations. We also use it in 6th through 8th grade with SPAR reviews every single week. It gives us meaningful data on content that the students might need a little additional help with, and we can deliver some remediation in our math centers or with warm-ups in class. Another thing that we use a lot is Desmos. Desmos, again, has been around before the pandemic, but definitely came in handy during the pandemic. And it allows us to see student responses for each of our slides. We can also give students feedback on this, which is fantastic. Another thing is that if you wanted to kind of pull the class together and discuss some of the answers, there is this great feature called an overlay where you can see all the students' answers, and then you can have a discussion on, in this case, plotting a rational number on a number line where there might have been an error or two, but you're not, singling out a student of anything of that nature. It could be like, hey, what do you think maybe this child was thinking, or how can we correct our thinking here?
This final teacher example focuses on measuring student learning. You're going to see Ms. Marie Martin from Gladwin Elementary School, first grade teacher.
I like using Seesaw in the classroom as teacher. The kids really enjoy the activities. They enjoy being able to submit the work on their own independently. They enjoy learning how to use the different features and becoming more and more skilled with those features. And it's exciting to watch them grow as Seesaw users. I also enjoy the feature where I can record my voice for them. So if they submit an assignment and maybe they missed a problem or maybe they didn't understand one of the directions, in Seesaw I can actually record my voice for them to explain what they need to look back and revisit, and then tell them, and when you finish that, resubmit it to me. And they do it. And so it's kind of like when you do a check-in in person and you can sit next to the kid or near the kid and explain something to them. That feature really allows teachers to be able to provide that feedback for kids and help them be successful with their assignments. The kids just really enjoy it, and they even enjoy using it in class. If I decide that we're going to do maybe a quick little exit ticket at the end of the day and draw a picture of something that you learned today and either record it or type it up for me, then they're able to send that right back to me. And they'll say, I sent that to you, Mrs. Martin. Can you take a look at it? And I can look at it right then and there and provide feedback right there. So those are some of the reasons why I really enjoy CISA.
So you can see by her examples that measuring student learning takes a variety of forms, ranging from traditional benchmarks and standardized assessments to something simple like using Seesaw on your iPad as an exit slip. Now we're taking a look at redesigning learning spaces. The learning spaces in our schools have been established to maximize collaboration, self-directed learning, inquiry, and creation. The designs are versatile, allowing for redesign at any time as student needs evolve. And you can see 2 illustrations, but there are lots of others from all of our schools. Coding as literacy. Coding is becoming an increasingly necessary skill across all industries. However, developing future workforce is important, but that's not our main goal. Coding literacy can also help students build transferable skills, including logical thinking, problem solving, persistence, and creativity.
And to echo what Jen just shared about coding as literacy, another very important skill when we use and see coding as literacy is thinking about computational thinking. And that is an essential skill for our 21st century learners. And what that is when students can develop and employ strategies for understanding how to problem solve and leverage the power of technology to test their solutions. And this can be seen, as we said, coding as literacy can be seen in our K-4 STEM program, as well as integrated in our classrooms. And as they go on the higher levels, those computer application courses as well. I'm going to give you one other example, and that is the picture on the right-hand side of your screen. That is our first LEGO League. I'm a proud coach, and that is my team from Belmont Hills. And the first LEGO League began in 2018 here in our district, and that introduces science, technology, engineering, and math in a hands-on, fun way for our students. The program has a few different elements. It has a research component where students have to solve a real-world problem and consult industry leaders to help them solve it. They have to code and perform in robotic games. And then there's a component about social emotional learning that first calls the core values. It is an exceptional program, and our students each year have enjoyed and really benefited from it. All right. Now we're going to be talking about the rise of STEAM learning here in Lower Merion School District. So as we can see across many different districts, there's been a growing emphasis on stronger science, technology, engineering, and math curriculum. And these disciplines are seen to boost innovation. And the rise in our district could not be possible without the incredible leadership of Nancy Acancia-Mesa and Jason Lilly. So I just want to take a moment to recognize their hard work and dedication of leading us here. And in the next few slides, I'm going to highlight some ways that you can see the rise of STEAM learning here. The first is going to be our Family STEM Night, and that began in 2015. And this celebrates the amazing things we're doing every day in our classroom and shares that experience with families. And again, I just need to highlight some of my students. So on the left side of the screen, where you can see those excited faces, that is one of from the first year of Family STEM Night. And my students still talked about how that was one of their favorite nights of the entire school year. Every year we get better and better as we grow. So the next thing I'm going to highlight is some of our summer STEM programs. The first program I'm going to start with is our grades 4 and 5 summer STEM camp that began in 2017. And through this program, which is week-long, students get to foster that growth mindset and perseverance as they work through the engineering design process. They explore many different elements like robotics, circuits, programming, as well as making, that A in the STEAM. They have innovative experiences where they're filled with collaboration, critical thinking, and that real-world problem solving. To continue talking about our summer programs, we had some newer additions. Last year, we started a middle school STEM camp, And this year, we had a girls in STEM camp, and this was its first year, 60 girls attending and a wait list, which is incredible. And I want to mention one of the mentors of this program, which is Ashley Craig. She is a middle school teacher at Black Rock Elementary, she was elementary, now she's middle school, Black Rock Middle School, and she shared about this summer that the girls in this program built cars, programmed them with microchips, and it was really tough for them. They persevered, and each team not only completed their design, but were able to participate in challenges with each other. It was a rewarding experience, and they're already looking forward to next summer. Now, the rise of STEAM learning in our district could not be possible without our commitment to professional learning. And if you look on our screen here, you can see pictures of different cohorts of teachers that went through the Arcadia University STEM teaching program. We've been partnering with Arcadia University since 2014, and 5 cohorts of teachers have studied and obtained their STEM teaching certificate, Jen and I being included in there. If you look very close in the pictures, you might be able to find us. And through this program, it emphasized STEM modeling and literacy, fostering scientific inquiry, and also, as we've been discussing, those interdisciplinary connections, making sure we have cross-curricular. And through this platform and program, the students have taken on leadership roles in the district, and their students have benefited from their experience. We've also seen new programs added. During our SPI summer program, in 2018, we added STEM as a special, and I've been lucky enough to teach that program since 2018. It's a highlight of my summer. And now, shifting from just being in our summer program, STEM is now part of our K-4 program, and it's just really incredible to see. So I hope that highlighted some of the amazing things we're doing here in STEAM learning.
So in 1998, ISTE published its very first set of student standards in regard to technology. Clearly, they've been revised since 1998. They've been revised several times, and this is the current set of ISTE student standards. They have 7 standards for digital age learners, and the purpose is to prepare students to thrive in a constantly evolving digital landscape. The ISTE student standards are designed to empower student voice and to ensure that learning is student-driven process. We also make sure to focus on digital citizenship in conjunction with the ISTE standards. Digital citizenship does take place during all K-12 classrooms. In the elementary schools, it's supported in the library, the librarians, and also tech integrators like myself and Kim. We typically use a common sense media curriculum, and it's a spiraling curriculum so that students will learn things and they will build on them as they're developmentally appropriate for them. And delivery does occur in the classrooms, library classes, and then in the older grades during advisory time. We also have some parent resources on the Tech It Out newsletter, which I run myself, and you can find that on the district webpage. And those are resources for families so that they themselves can understand how to help support their students, because we all know that it is a very changing environment and we don't have a lot of resources necessarily. We can't call our parents and ask them how they handled our digital integration in our childhood. So we have resources available for them. I try to update it anytime I read a new article, anytime I come across something that I think would be beneficial for families to know.
Okay. So there are a lot of exciting things happening, and the decision-making behind all of that excitement is really a critical part of a teacher's role. The Bold Schools framework we're coming back to, hopefully what you heard in the words of Marita McCarthy and Ashley Rem, and when we look at what's happening in classrooms, this idea of leveraging technology to differentiate and make sure all students have an access point, an entry point, they have modifications as needed, and teachers are responsive, and able to provide that just-in-time support so that students feel successful. So listening to Marita McCarthy and the ways that she differentiated, hopefully it was resonating for you when we think of our equity policy, for example. Music is one of those areas where we have many families with means to provide lessons and outside experiences. And we have other students who come to a classroom, a music class and recorders, never having read music before, played an instrument before, and leveraging the technology so that every student feels success is powerful for our teachers and empowering to our students. So things like that are part of the decision-making that our teachers are engaged in. This Bold Schools framework is another tool. What's really powerful about this is it looks at the learning first, and it has some guiding questions that keep us focused on the learning and focused on leveraging any tools thereafter in support of the learning. So we don't start tech first. We don't say, you know, I want to use X, and then drive the learning around it. We start from what is it that we want students to be able to do, to know, and what's the best evidence-based strategy to get there, and then what are the technology resources that could leverage access, modify, make possible what's not possible without technology, give students different ways to meet the task, but also to respond to it. So those are some of the questions that may be asked. If the answer at the end is, we don't need technology, we don't need technology. So it's a really thoughtful approach to designing so that our choices are meaningful and really targeted to leverage up the learning. So one way we also think about it, this is a rigor and relevance framework. So you heard a lot about measuring, and that's not a negative word. Sometimes people think measuring data, it's all testing. We're here to make sure students are successful. And we have to have a way to check and see that they're successful so they feel good, they feel empowered, and they have a strong foundation. So that idea of making sure that students have multiple ways to demonstrate learning, but then we have multiple ways to check that learning is really powerful. We also want to be looking at having the appropriate level of rigor so that students are comfortably challenged. And that's where this idea of having relevance really matters too. So students want to have, you know, things that are real-world applications. They also sometimes need something that's stretching them beyond where they are. So we have some students who we can scaffold up with technology, others we can extend and enrich, and we have many students who are right where they should be that we can really engage and help them find their voice and make choices within what's possible because of technology. So all of those let us get into the right-hand corner at the top there, where students become creators. And the whole picture of technology use that we hope we showed you, where students, you know, when you looked at some of what was happening in those STEM experiences, the students were collaborating and they were connecting with others around some of these problems and tasks. So it's exciting, but it's also very targeted, very purposeful, and very personal as we look at the right fit for each student and each lesson. And again, these are best practices and we're in a progression, but this is the direction that we're working toward. And it's exciting. It's very exciting work. So we just want to share that with you, that we're looking at critical thinking moving up that left, but also the meaning and all of those pathways and personalizations and differentiation of the strategic plan. So finally, you know, the things that really resonate for our district are, you know, our equity focus, our commitment to the strategic plan, making sure that every student has what they need, and technology and all the diverse applications available to us are what help us to do that. Many times it's assistive technology that is supporting students. Universal design for learning means we're designing in a way that no matter how different someone's task is, everybody is fully included and has that sense of belonging. The idea of having extensions in summer is exciting, but it's really wonderful to see those be pulled into the school year in the many ways that they are. And finally, those multiple pathways to success. Technology helps us to create those for students, and we can individualize and we can differentiate and we can really provide those multiple methods of accessing instruction but also demonstrating learning. So it really is exciting to be in education at this time when technology empowers us to do so much good with kids. So thank you for listening. We're excited about what the future holds, and any questions.
Thank you very much to all three of you for the presentation this evening. I'm going to open up to the board if there are any. Ms. Kalish?
Thank you. I really enjoyed hearing about all the sort of curricular approach, curricular integration that we can have with all this technology, and I thought that was a really great sort of explanation for a lot of parents who are seeing their kids come home with these devices, especially in the last couple of years, and really understand that it's not just a way to get their homework at home or a place to type, that it's really supporting the curriculum. One thing I thought was really great was, where are we going back to this slide? I lost my slide that I wanted to talk about. Oh no, hang on, I'm gonna keep talking. Eventually I'll find it. It'll get there. We'll get there. Hang on. Okay, I got it. It was the last thing on the slide. It was slide 17, where we were talking about digital citizenship. And I really appreciated the mention of the common sense media instruction, because I think that's a really important thing, the way our kids are being exposed to a lot of news and media. And one thing I would love if we could address briefly is if there's any kind of instruction that goes into safety for interacting online, because as we have younger and younger kids with one-to-one access to the internet on these tools, whether they be for school things or the fact that they have these computers and iPads at home once they've finished their things and they still connect to the internet, if we have that kind of coaching as part of our instructional curriculum.
For sure, it's definitely there, and spirals, as Jen said. I'll let Jen jump in and speak to specifics.
The Common Sense Media curriculum is very, very broad. It covers a lot of different topics, including cyberbullying, privacy, security, even things like balancing screen time. You wouldn't think of that as a lesson that we teach, but we actually do talk about balancing so that you're not spending all of your time on the screen. We do things like body image and looking at social media critically and things like that. So the Common Sense Media curriculum really does cover all of those topics, and we hit them at the developmental appropriate time. So we're not studying body image in first grade, but that might be a fourth grade topic or fifth grade topic.
Tell you there's never too early to start.
Well, don't get me wrong, I would put it in every grade level, I agree, but what we did was we took all of the lessons from Common Sense Media and we selected 3 to 5 depending on the grade level. So, and we also made sure that every skill that they learn somewhere comes back. So if they learn something at an appropriate level in grade 2, it's going to come back in grade 4 as well, hitting all those key areas.
Great. I think that's really essential to, while we're giving these kids these tools, to give them the support and the scaffold to interact with the internet and the world and, frankly, adults more safely. So thank you.
For sure. And what you, I was glad Jen just raised that idea of helping kids be reflective about their own use of technology. The idea that through all of our, our portfolios, student goal setting, differentiated opportunities for students, we want them to be empowered and partners in their own learning. So the idea that they also start to take responsibility for their own screen time, I would love if my kids would hear that message, but I know that that's something that I'm pleased is in that educational programming as well.
Ms. Sotner, I knew it.
I'm sorry, I just can't wrap the question correctly in my brain. But in all the videos, I kept hearing, it's a game changer, it's a game changer. Mm-hmm. And so what I'm trying to understand is, how is it changing the game? Yeah. How can we measure that in some way? But also, how do we reflect back on when it feels like a game changer to the teachers and not to the students, or to the students and not to the teachers?
The biggest
what does that mean? It's so hard to hear that without understanding the context.
And one way, and it's really simplistic, is, just the access to technology in a classroom, right? That's very quantifiable. Pre-COVID, anything that you did was constrained by your access and the tools available. One-to-one opens up possibilities for everybody to be working together as a class, as a cohort, as a group. It also allows, in some cases, I know one of the things we struggled with iPads is sharing Google IDs. My stuff is, so certain things change the game when a student, kind of like what Marita was saying. I could start class and I didn't have to teach the tool to be able to use it. So I could dive right in. Kids have the familiarity with it because of practice. Those things are game changers, because anybody who's been in a classroom where you have to distribute things, where you have to teach kids, the setup, the takedown, the breakdown. I mean, a lot of that is when you're thinking about, I see students once a week, right, for a special area, and I want to be able to let them have this experience. And there's so many things that go into it when you don't have access to the tools as easily. So the game changer that we heard repeatedly, especially from special areas, because they had the least technology in their classrooms pre-COVID, was that it's changed how I can teach, which is why I thought it was worth highlighting. When I think of, I supervise K-12 music, and one of the things we're always thinking of is the students who have more opportunity and access to certain experiences outside of school and come in having had private lessons, and you're sitting next to someone who's a true beginner. So really making that a true space for all students to come in at whatever level they are, and for a teacher to be able to work with everybody in that way. That's how I heard it described so much by the special areas. So, I wouldn't say we need a measurement other than to say they didn't have it, now they have it, and it's really enabled them to use technology powerfully in ways that classroom teachers had experienced much sooner. Sure.
Ms. Jurek?
Thanks so much. I do have a quick question. We have heard from many parents concerns about the amount of technology used during the day and downtimes, given the access to one-to-one technology. So I'm just wondering about what approaches your office is taking in working with administrators to hold teachers accountable for using it appropriately and not over-dependent on the technology, especially in elementary.
For sure, that's a great question. So a couple things. One is our entire administrative team, K-12, received that book, Bold School, and if you'll notice that framework, it's very, it's driven by questions, right? So those questions can become supervisory questions where principals, assistant principals can coach into practice and help teachers reflect on their use of technology. It's also something that can be used by our leaders now as professional development within their buildings. So the amount of change we had in the past couple of years, and like I said, these are best practices. It's a progression where we want to be there, but do we have places where we're going to have to continue the conversation? For sure. So that conversation will continue. I think one of the advantages to the opening this year that I'm very excited about is a lot of when I saw students on devices, and I didn't want them to be, was in hallways when they needed to be 6 feet apart and masked. So when they were waiting in line last year, at the start of the school year, and we wanted distancing and masking, that was hard. And I think this year, you absolutely are seeing kids engaged and together and in groups and face-to-face and talking and social. So I think that, to me, is the biggest pivot, that we wanted to see some of those uses of technology that were just a real hardship during the pandemic disappear, and just to see these more active, collaborative uses of technology. So that'll be part of the conversation for sure. And I also think, teachers being really mindful about that. And, we'll just have to, same way we all, even as adults, have to monitor our own use, being really thoughtful about the experiences you're providing for kids during the day.
I'm going to quickly follow up on that because it's very specific to that. So with respect to sort of, I think this is a follow-up to your question around not necessarily just in the classroom and in terms of the education piece, but also in terms of in the hallways and during recess and at lunch, that during COVID, it was sort of something that, because the kids couldn't really be interacting. And so I think sort of the follow-up question then is what practices are being put back in place, right? So that they're, right, sort of things that were standard prior to COVID that for, reasonable reasons went away. How are those standards being put back into place? You don't, you shouldn't be on your phone during lunch, and you shouldn't be on your phone during recess, and those types of things.
I wouldn't say it's as much of the list of, don'ts, do's and don'ts. I would say it's a lot more of what, during the summer, we had a leadership retreat, a couple times coming together. And one of the things all the principals were asked to do was think about your opening to school and how you're going to build community. Because students need to come back and have that experience and have the community building as a whole school. How are we helping them to know how to interact with each other, interact in large spaces? So a lot of that is, hopefully organic and very positive building. And I think, as with all things, you teach the model of what we want to see, and then we start sort of intervening and coaching in when we're not seeing that. So I think those conversations and that work will continue because we're dealing with little guys who, just are going to need that reiteration. But I think that the message is really just the personal relationships and communities.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was interested about the flipped classroom because I saw about 5-6 years ago an ISC meeting where a math teacher who was talked about it, and it was really being limited to high school and honors classroom because they felt like felt like that those were the people that responsible people that actually were watch it. And now I'm interested to see now that it's moving down to younger grades, and I'm wondering how long has that been going on? And how does that work into the homework policy as far as the how long the teacher can speak for, how long that takes, and how it incorporates in with the other homework that a student may have in these younger grades?
Okay. So thinking of, I'm thinking of Andy's, yeah. Yes, so there are a couple questions rolled into there. One is, what does it look like? How long has it been going on? I would say we have always had innovators and people trying things and at the edge of learning, and I think that we continue to have that. So flipped classrooms, for those who aren't familiar with that term, means that students watch or experience something in advance of when we come together as a whole group. Or in advance of a session, a learning session, where the teacher can then leverage small groups, flexible groups, technology to differentiate and really individualize. So the example that we actually shared at CCOB and took out was a teacher who used that. And one of the things that was nice is even if a teacher should be looking at, they should be attentive to the guidelines for homework, but we know that students come in with different degrees of preparation for a lot of different reasons. What's really nice is instead of assigning a homework that you have no information on how a student responded to it, was successful with it, accessed it, experienced it, the flipped classroom allows a teacher to attach just a couple little exit tickets to it, a little formative assessment to see, did this work for you? Was this helpful to you? Do you understand what we're trying to do? And when the information comes back, the student can come back to a designed experience that supports them right where they are. So in that regard, the example, and I'm going to let, well, I don't remember what it was though, do you?
So, yeah, I'll give you the example that was in the video just to, she did a flipped classroom video about Cornell notes, and the video itself was about 6 minutes long. And a really neat thing that a lot of our video platforms allow us to do now is when students are watching videos, it allows us to actually pick stopping points in the video and embed questions in, so the students just can't run it along. They actually have to answer a question before they get to the next part of the video. So she was using those responses then in the classroom. And she also addressed that if students were not able, for whatever reason, to do that at home, she also offered that as a lesson warm-up. And she felt very strongly that that helps her differentiate in her classroom and really personalize that experience. And she's a 6th grade teacher at Ballackinwood Middle School. I just want to shout her out because she really is one of our innovators. Her name's Andy Zabari, and she's truly incredible. So I hope that helps answer your question.
Thank you. I think it does help enrich the classroom when they come in knowing about a topic and being able to talk about it.
For sure.
Ms. Garrison?
I'm really excited.
If you can put your, oh, sorry.
We project my voice. Didn't even have this on. Okay, I'm really excited about all the use of technology. I'm curious, are there opportunities for parents to play around with some of this technology so that they can become more familiar with it?
That's a great question. I know that we did something we were talking about before the board meeting where we had, I think there were some iPads shared for a demo. Well, it's something we can think about. I'm not sure what that could look like.
Okay.
Do we have any existing opportunities right now that you can think of? Other than we can, yeah, family STEM night, people can come in and try the robots and things, but we can give that some thought. And there's some things that the tools are, the information is shared with families, like, you know, Seesaw, Flipgrid, so there's certain things that people can access and see, but there may be other things that we'll have to give that some thought.
Yeah, I mean, I still would like to be able to learn how to play the recorder, so I would,
You mean like an adult school, I gotcha. You mean we all want to go back to middle school?
yeah, you know, or, I mean, I did play the flute for a little bit, so.
There you
but I
go.
mean, it would be nice to see whatever that technology is, so.
Yeah, I will say that when you go see some of it in action, it makes you want to go back to school again.
Yeah, I'm
It really
ready.
does, it's very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you so much, Dr. Godia. So. As we prepare for our next presentation, I think Dr. McGowan will be introducing the presentation from the Achievement Imperative Task Force.
And one quick announcement, during the presentation, I received word that we were having some internet issues, but it did not impact the videos. So any of the slides that were not visible in the live stream, they will be visible in the recording.
So thank you. We don't have our names on here because we actually have chairs or co-chairs of each of the committees with us tonight, and they're just going to introduce themselves as they come up. All of the Achievement Imperative Task Force members are on each slide by their committee, and so you'll see that, and we'll have people come up and introduce themselves. But as part of my role as the Assistant Superintendent, I oversee the Achievement Imperative Task Force. I actually work with wonderful people at Achievement Imperative, and it's one of my favorite meetings that we have every single month. And so what is Achievement Imperative Task Force? You might be asking yourself as I say that. We have several committees in the district around equity and anti-racism. And the first committee began in 1997, and that was our CARE committee, which is the Committee to Address Race in Education. That committee, we have, I think, 300 people that sent us an email saying they wanted to participate. We sent out an all-call this year and said, anybody that wants to come to the meeting, let us know. We know we won't get 300 every single time, but it's great to have 300 people that have interest in joining our CARE committee. CARE meets once a month, and really, they discuss the issues of race that have implications in education in our system, how it impacts us. The neat thing about CARE in the past year is that the work we did in the CARE committee actually informed our PRP, which is our 2-hour professional development that every staff member goes through, and it informed the work that's happening this year. And so all that work was used to provide the staff development for our staff this school year. In addition to that, in 2016, the district created the Achievement Imperative Task Force. The Achievement Imperative Task Force is really the working arm of CARE, and now the working arm of Ad Hoc, the Ad Hoc Committee, which was, it came into inception in 2020, which is a board committee. And so you'll hear, when you hear the work that's happening, you'll hear how it really does all work together by what's happening in each of these committees. So things like our Policy 101 and the AR actually was crafted in Achievement Imperative and then brought back to different other groups. And so you'll see how that really functions as the arm, the working arm of all these different committees. And so we're going to go through each of our subcommittees tonight that we had last school year, and we'll give you an update on what happened in those subcommittees and talk about what we're looking at potentially for this school year. Last year, we added 2 new committees. So we've had the Gender Equity and STEM K-12 Committee. We've had an Equity and Inclusion Committee, Diversity and Recruitment, and a Parent and Community Engagement Committee. And then last year, we added 2 additional committees. I think back a while ago, we had restorative practices. We brought that back to Achievement Imperative this past school year. And in addition to that, we added a Professional Learning Committee. And the reason we added these committees was because we asked around to CARE, we asked around to our administrators, and we talked to teachers about what could we continue to add. And so those 2 came up over and over again, and that's why they were put back in. What'll happen in October, our first meeting's in October. When we meet again in October, we'll talk about, do any of these committees need to shift their focus, go away, or should we be adding new committees in? And we do that every beginning of the school year. And so we ended with these committees last school year. And so I'm going to introduce Dr. Gaudioso, who's going to start with the Parent and Community Engagement Committee.
Okay, this is a group I have loved working with, and you can see our subcommittee members there. It's been an exciting group to work with because over the past couple years, I would say they've really started to cohere and become really empowered, which is exciting. Amy Buckman is on this committee with me, and we've had really wonderful conversations about actively engaging every family, which is our subcommittee objective. And to think about that, we've had to define engagement to some degree, because we're not talking about engaging people by, measuring it by number of people who are volunteering, because this isn't necessarily about pulling people into volunteer opportunities. It's more about that idea of making sure every family has the information that they need to be empowered to support their child with full participation and engagement in school, and also so that all parents and families and guardians feel a sense of belonging and welcome when they come into our schools. So thinking about our, and I should say, so some of the members of our team here are made up by community leaders, Manir Walker, Darcia Mobley, a staff member, Reverend Carolyn Cavanes, Denise Burt, who has been a really powerful voice for us, thinking of how we can support our families who are culturally diverse or language diverse. So it's really a nice breadth of representation there. The goals of the group are to enhance, at least for this this past year, and this was pretty exciting because one of the goals was to enhance communication by making text options available for families, and that was a goal that that the committee felt really strongly about. Amy came on board, and that texting availability is something that came to be as a result of the work of the group and Amy working with the team to make that possible. We also wanted to work through existing community and staff relationships to create new ones that support the needs of families. And we really wanted to build relationships with families who've not engaged because they felt that perhaps they were opting out or disengaged intentionally, perhaps because of a prior experience, and we wanted to really try to make sure that we were trying to conduct outreach and build relationships so that parents had what they need to be supported. So the tasks that we worked toward last year, the communication task, you can see that was achieved, very good feedback about that. We also wanted to create a framework and draft some roles for some liaisons for the subcommittee to work in coordination with the subgroup and our new DEI director. And that framework and draft role was the work of the group last year. We wanted to identify a point person who could support that liaison. So we've identified in each of the buildings it would be our counselor and social worker, and we wanted to conceptualize a back-to-school family outreach event. So what was exciting about that is that we were able to launch something this summer. Amy Buckman and I attended the National Night Out and did a lot of outreach trying to make sure that families knew how to access school district information, knew families with school-age children, how do you, enroll for notifications so that you are getting information. I think it was a lot. We met a lot of people, and it was pretty well received, I would say. So we look to do more of that and think about what that could look like. We also wanted to create district resources for use across roles that help families who are just looking at our website, but also those working with families from within the district or the community to know what the community resources are, and that's something that is now available. For this upcoming school year, we have already started working with Shawana James Coles, our new DEI director, talking through that liaison role and trying to think about what it could look like for recruitment with some of the back-to-school events, that BTS there, back-to-school outreach events. And then we also are going to work toward identification of these family engagement liaisons this year. And we're going to, so the coordination of the back-to-school family event, the first one was the National Night Out, and we're going to continue to explore other ways that we can reach out to families. Especially once we have these liaison folks in place. And one area that we really wanted to focus on is support for linguistically and culturally diverse community members, just to make sure that we're doing all that we can so that everyone feels welcome. So those are our considerations for the upcoming school year.
forgot I was pinch hitting. All of a sudden, I realized it was me. So you get me. So we do have a nice committee for this, but Mike Johnson does head it, and so we're going to transition him out of the leadership role for this and transition somebody in since he has a new principalship as well. But he has really taken on the idea of restorative practices. If anybody doesn't know, Mike just got his doctorate. Congratulations to Mike, and his work was around restorative practices. And so the subcommittee objective was to create a program for the district buildings that establishes a restorative approach to school culture and community and unity. Remember, I think people always think of restorative practices as what we do after something happens, right? And it is not. It's actually 80% of what happens before. It's like 80% not that. It's supposed to be what happens before everything, and building that climate and the culture and those circles so that students feel like they belong, and our staff and our parents do as well. And so it really is establishing that piece. And so the goals for this past year were to develop and implement a professional development plan. We've already trained all of our administrators in the district, anybody that wasn't trained, we retrained people that weren't, and key leaders in all the buildings. We did that in June, and we had a 2-day training for multiple people, so there was a lot of people at that training session. We're trying to ensure that all building members receive the restorative practices framework. It's going to take us a few years. It will not happen all in 1 year, because if you think about the number of employees we have in the district, it's important that our bus drivers have it, that our food service workers have it, that our IAs, our teachers, and so it's a lot of people. So it is going to take us a few years to get through, but planning that was part of what happened last year. And then to raise awareness for our community stakeholders about what it is. Again, it's the 80% before and it's the 20% after, and I think people have it backward in their mind, honestly. So you see what the task was: to create a timeline for professional development. It looks like we will train all of our secondary staff at some point this year that have not yet been trained. Since we've had shifts in all of our staff members, we have people everywhere that are trained at the secondary level. We used to have almost all of our Welsh Valley teachers trained, but now they're in other places. And so we'll make sure that all secondary people, that's the goal by the end of this year. And then identify building staff to become trainers. And we did that identification of the staff. We had some transitions, and so we need to go back and re-identify and make sure we have those trainers. And then moving forward, we're looking to determine how we can receive the training in a relevant, timely manner, and what extent could it happen. And then, of course, there's always budget constraints for everything. And so restorative practices, our best budgetary way to approach it is doing train the trainer. And so that's what we'll continue to do. We have our own staff trained, and then they provide the training for it. So it's moving in a good direction, work in progress, but we definitely have made some strides this year. Jason Lilly's going to speak about gender equity in STEM K-12.
Hi, everyone. So my committee up there, so it's me, Nancy Acancia-Mesa. I'm the secondary STEM supervisor. Nancy is the elementary STEM supervisor. And Nate Banto is a teacher at Harriton High School who has also taught in our summer programs at both the elementary, middle, and high school levels. We have had the pleasure of working together since the inception of the Achievement Imperative Task Force. So this is a group that's been together for a long time now, working towards these different goals. Just to provide a little bit of background, we have a fairly robust elementary STEM summer program, and at the beginning of the Achievement Imperative Task Force, we created a high school summer STEM experience. What we realized over those years is we were missing the middle. So in the last couple of years, we focused on having a middle school summer STEM experience available for students. We started by focusing on our BIPOC population, and so we began that a year ago. And then this past summer, we continued looking for areas of, where there were gaps in either access, equity, those different types of things, and we found that our female student population was definitely not represented in the same way as our male population in our high school STEM courses. So that became an area of emphasis for us. This whole night started with Dr. Mameen talking a little bit about how the district is beginning to be recognized for our work in the areas of diversity, equity, and inclusion, but now falling under that bigger umbrella of belonging. This particular group, our whole goal is about kids feeling that sense of belonging. That's what this is all about. So we created our summer STEM program for the middle school kids 2 years ago, really primarily focused on students of color. This past year, focusing on our female students at the middle school level. And you heard a little bit about it in the last presentation. We had an overwhelming response. We had a wait list. Like, we have people knocking down the doors to participate in these programs. So that's really great thing to have. So this is what we developed, trying to increase participation, trying to get more students involved, feeling like not just they had a chance to experience this, but when they leave after being part of this, they feel like they belong there. Our goal is really to get students to continue on with STEM in the areas of STEM as they progress from elementary to middle school to high school. Remember, the big difference when students move to the high school is they have choice. Up through that, K through 8, they experience specials and things like that, and all students get those experiences, but then they have choice. So we want to make sure that all students feel a sense of belonging before they move on to the high school where they have those choices. We want them to feel like they belong in STEM if that's something they choose. So that was our focus. So we ran 2 weeks of our summer middle school experience for students of color, and then we added a third week this past year strictly for female students. And again, overwhelming response. Our challenge now is to think about how can we involve more and more students in this. So, we have things like staffing to think about, STEM teachers, we have resources, we have space, those kind of things to be able to extend this program and think about ways to challenge ourselves to come up with creative ways to allow more and more kids to have access to programs like this. Again, I shared a little bit about the goals. We really were focused on trying to close the gap that we see at the high school level in our STEM programming. Just to give you an example, computer science is one that stands out, technology, engineering specifically is one that stands out. You're talking about, 2-to-1, 3-to-1 male to female ratio in those courses, and we really want to try to close that gap and shrink that gap as much as we can. So this is an opportunity for us to try to do that, increase that interest at the middle level. Again, for the upcoming year, our challenge, and I said this group's been together for 6 years, it continues because the challenge is how do we keep growing this? Every year it grows, every year it gets bigger, every year more students participate, and our challenge is really just to keep thinking about how we can make this bigger and better. 5th grade is now part of the middle school, so again, our work this year is to think about how can we keep moving this backward to include 5th and 6th grade now, because it's primarily been 7th and 8th grade the last couple of years. So that's our goal. I'm going to turn it over now to Dr. Nure.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Nure. I am the lead supervisor of student services and gifted education at Lower Merion School District. Like Jason, I joined the Imperative Task Force at its inception, and Chris Hall and I were original members of this specific committee. We've grown in size, and we're excited to continue to grow. Ty Ross, he's no longer with us in the district, so we're going to miss him, but we're looking to add members to our committee. Our subcommittee objective is for every student in Lower Merion School District to see their identity represented within the LMSD staff, to look amongst the teaching staff, to walk in the classroom and see themselves represented. The goals that we've identified in this subcommittee are to increase the percentage of racially diverse applicants. We're targeting a percentage of 10% of the total pool of applicants. We want to increase the number of racially diverse applicants who move on to the interview rounds. We want to set that goal for 60%. We want to increase the hiring of racially diverse staff to 15% of the total pool hired. And then the last goal, to develop, implement, and analyze survey results to assess diverse employees' sense of belonging, level of comfort. So as we've spent time researching and thinking about ways to increase and improve the recruitment of diverse staff, we've come to realize that this works hand in hand with retention. We have to focus equally our efforts on identifying ways to ensure that the staff that we have, our diverse staff, feel a sense of belongingness and connectedness, and through that, we're going to make our school district a more attractive place for diverse applicants. The tasks for the 21-22 school year were to expand the scope of advertising platforms. Our HR department, I thought, did a fabulous job of looking at unique and different ways of advertising for our positions that we're hiring for. to participate in recruitment fairs, including events specific to diversity recruitment efforts. We've been doing this for quite some time, but I know that our HR department has looked into identifying new recruitment fairs and new events. We're always looking to find different ways. We've made many connections with leading experts in the field, and we're going to continue to just continue with our efforts of networking and finding the best opportunities to attract the best talent. Analyzing exit interviews to collect insight on how to improve employees' sense of belongingness. So this speaks to the retention piece. So one thing that we started to do is looking at exit interviews, look for themes and topics that could help us improve our retention. And then also to prepare, revise, and review cultural proficiency interview questions and look-fors. So maybe about a year and a half or 2 years ago, with the leadership of Chris Hall and Megan Schaefer, we started to look at our specific interview questions and try to identify key questions that we thought were essential for every interview process that focused on diversity, equity, inclusion, and cultural proficiency, so that whether it was a professional staff position or support staff position, that we're asking key questions, and also identifying specific look-fors. What are responses that we want people to highlight in the specific question? So whether it's a staff nurse position, whether it's a reg ed classroom teacher position, these are key questions that we specifically assess. Going forward for the 22-23 school year, as we do with every year, we want to analyze our hiring data to see if we've met our specific target goals, and then adjust and realign based on how we've responded to those target data points. Review the recruitment and advertising processes. Essentially, are there specific fairs, events, platforms that we find to be more efficient, are yielding the greatest results? We want to put more energy into that. One thing that we've been talking about, and I think we're really going to put more effort into, is to plan our own internal recruitment events. We've been spending a lot of time attending events and not finding them to be very fruitful, yet our name yields a lot of interest. So maybe having a phenomenal superintendent that draws a large crowd come in and maybe talk to folks. I don't know, possibly, but really taking control over how we navigate and manage that specific event, having professional staff maybe lead some talking sessions, but we think we can draw a large crowd and appeal to some applicants in that capacity. So that's something we're going to work on. We want to continue to review cultural proficiency interview questions, maybe refine and identify which questions are working better during the interview process. We have here creating surveys, analyzing data, and also I know staff at times get overwhelmed with the amount of surveys, but looking at the data points we currently have to determine what's working well and the sense of belongingness of our current staff. And then I didn't do anything. Okay. And just looking at budgetary considerations, where do we want to focus some of our financial resources, what's working, what's not working? Okay, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Megan Schaefer, Assistant to the Superintendent for District Administration, and here this evening representing the Equity and Inclusion Subcommittee, which has been in existence for a couple years now. Our first task 2 years ago was to help create the district equity policy that was passed by the board back in June of 2021. And over the past year, the 21-22 school year, our efforts were focused on development of the related administrative regulation for Policy 101. And that work, I feel like we had an opportunity to present to the board and to the community a number of times throughout last school year, primarily on a virtual platform, which was a really nice way to gather additional or allow for additional student and community engagement in that process. And so the work of the task force essentially was to not only codify practices related to equity that we have been doing, but also to explore ways in which we could expand our scope and sort of actualize the vision of the school board, which was set forth in the policy. And so just to relate it to someone that may just be looking at the policy and administrative regulation for the first time, the policy itself sets forth the board's vision for equity work in the district. It also provides a pretty robust glossary of terms, which was really important to the work of this committee in general, was to ground our work in some common understandings, common terms, common definitions that we could use to ensure that we at least start to bring alignment to this work and understanding across not only staff, but community and students as well. The third thing that the policy does is to set forth responsibilities of district administration, staff, and expectations for students and families. So those responsibilities that were in policy are really what helped us build the administrative regulation, which again puts sort of more details and direction for administrators, staff to continue to expand the work. That's, I think, part of the vision of the Board of School Directors. So that administrative regulation is on our website for, for the purposes of the community that may be listening in, and also for the work that we will be moving forward with this year. Again, that sort of the efforts culminated in that June 2022 board meeting where we presented the administrative regulation, and both the policy and the regulation, I think, are one of those are not the type of policy that you put on the shelf and don't look at again for 5 years. I think we're going to continue to need to look at it, refine it, ensure that the way in which we've defined words and concepts continue to be current, and that we use it as sort of a guidance for all of the work that we do throughout the school district and not just in classrooms. So we've, for the purposes of the 22-23 school year, we will continue to communicate the outcomes of both the policy and the administrative regulation, what those expectations are, make sure that leaders, as we've already done through our work in the summer, understand the terminology and the expectations for moving forward. Again, we will continue to refine and hone in on those strategies that we want to focus on in any particular year, and align, and I think this is important to how we move forward as a member, as part of the Achievement Imperative Task Force, is how the work of this particular subcommittee and the administrative regulation support or enhance the work of the other subcommittees, and that we're doing that in a coordinated way. So I think that's an important goal for this particular subcommittee for next year. So that's where we are with the subcommittee here, and we're on to professional learning. Sarah Stout.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Sarah Stout, the principal of Black Rock Middle School. I'm pleased to represent my committee, which includes members of district staff as well as community members. This is a new committee to the Achievement Imperative Task Force this year. I've been a proud member of the group since its inception, but I moved over here this year, and I'm very proud of our work. Our goal is to recognize that the district is incredibly committed to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and that different stakeholders, particularly our teachers and those who interact with students, enter the work at different places. And so there's an opportunity to encourage all of our stakeholders to grow, recognizing that what an individual may need to grow from where they are to where they want to be differs from person to person. And so our goal was to think about a systematic mechanism to first determine in what areas people wish to grow, to identify that, to codify that in an individual goal, and then to support that person in their own growth journey through the teacher evaluation goal setting process. we basically, we're working on this. Our goal for the year is to help create a why, to help our staff members to understand very clearly the why of individual growth in diversity, equity, and belonging is important. To tell the story through the work of individual students, their experiences. And we know that we've had some powerful opportunities in the past to have that happen. And then to leverage our professional learning communities and our learning circles to help teachers work together in collaborative groups on that growth throughout the year, not just on set professional learning dates or events, but through an embedded part of their professional learning throughout the year. And then to work with individual teachers to identify those growth goals that they wish to work on in terms of their growth, and then to create a measure to determine the effectiveness of that. So that's our goal of where we're going in the future. Obviously, we are not there yet. What I am really excited to say where we are with a very concrete step. So we know that the diversity, equity, and belonging is embedded all throughout the Danielson rubric. In 2014, we had the pleasure of working with Dr. Barbara Moore-Williams, who helped a group of educators align the Danielson Growth Framework. That's the series of, it's kind of the rubric we use to help teachers identify how they want to improve as instructors. And we did a crosswork at that time to culturally proficient exemplars and expectations. And we have a goal-setting process. It exists. It's a really great goal-setting process. I'm really proud of it. Every teacher has an opportunity to sit down 3 times a year in a one-on-one conference with their evaluating professional to talk about their goals and where we want to grow. So to start this year at the secondary level, the 5 of us are going to add a space where the professionals, when they come in and speak to us, they'll have their growth goals, and one of those areas that we'll specifically focus on is this diversity, equity, inclusion growth goal. Where are you? Where would you like to be? How can I help you get there? And what was great is that when Sage Wellness came in to do the PRP, they really set us up nicely for this, because the end of the teacher's professional learning, which every professional will experience this year, ends with, and what is your step going to be based on the learning that they do in terms of encouraging teachers to speak up and speak out when things are going and you see something that's happening, and how do you do that? So it leverages really nicely into these conversations that we have with our teachers through the goal-setting process. So at the secondary level, we will work on that, and we'll work on developing a bank of resources, because ideally, we want to get people working on similar goals an opportunity to get together and talk about what it is that they're working on in a group. We're going to really think about creating that why at the secondary level, really thinking about leveraging those professional learning circles to lead to those goals. We're going to work with our elementary colleagues who are there. They're ready to go, but since I'm a secondary principal, selfishly, it was easier for me to work with my other 4 colleagues to get us going here, and to move in this direction, and hopefully have people feel really great about the progress that they're making. And I'll turn it back to Dr. McGlynn.
So we've done a lot of work, and I'm actually very proud of all the people that are here and all the time and energy and effort that was put into having this happen. Yeah, so we meet once a month, but if you can't tell, it takes a lot more than once a month to accomplish some of the things that we talked about. And so there's homework assignments often, and people really take that seriously and do whatever they need to do outside of those one-time-a-month meetings to make sure that we continue to progress and move forward. We presented at the ad hoc committee of the board in May, I believe it was, and at the end of this presentation, we did breakout rooms to say, what do you think? Where do you think we need to focus and grow? So part of October's meeting rather, will be to take a look at the feedback that we received and talk about how do we incorporate, or should we incorporate, what we've been given from feedback sessions into the work that we do this year. Hopefully, you've also been able to tell that the committees are structured so that we have community, parents, teachers, staff members on all of the committees. Our small but mighty committee for the STEM education only has 3 people on it. We are always trying to get members, but I let people pick, and for whatever reason, and I can't figure it out, they're just not picking that committee. But we really do try to make sure that we're diverse in the people that are represented. No one group it has more people than another group within the community, but we've really tried to diversify to make sure that we're moving forward. So we're pretty excited about the work that's happening and look forward to what's going to continue to happen in the future. Any questions for us?
Thank you very much. Ms. Garrison?
Well, first, I want to applaud your efforts. Great job. I don't know if you can answer this question, but are we also looking for diversity in the other areas like facilities management, transportation, technology team? Just
Yeah.
out of curiosity.
From a hiring perspective, yes, the answer is absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, and I think we've done a nice job. I'm sure at some point, I say we, because it's not really we. Every time I say we, I don't really mean it's me. I do the end interviews for some things, but our team in the district has really done a nice job, and I'm sure that Megan and her team at some point will talk to everybody about that. But yes, the answer is yes, for sure.
Ms. Shurek?
Yes. So stay with me on this one. It connects to some of the work we've been doing in policy, student code of conduct, and responsibility of staff. So my question comes down to, I think it's great how we've layered onto Danielson the culturally proficient framework and additional responsibilities. It also then allows us to hold teachers accountable for inappropriate practices in the classroom connected to anti-racism, equity, and how they facilitate a classroom learning environment. So my question is, how are we holding administrators responsible for the evaluations of teachers along those lines, inherently addressing the unconscious bias that might be in play in their own evaluation of teachers and doing that work?
So we moved to PAE-TEP last year. It's a great question, right? So we moved to PAE, which I like that we moved to it. We didn't have a system in place for a few years, but we have PAE-TEP right now. And we were able to not only just use the forms that exist in PAE-TEP, which are the state forms, right? The basic Danielson rubric that we have to use at a state level, but we're also able to add in our own custom forms. And so we do have our custom forms in there, and we can go through and take a look at what's happening from an administrative level, how people are being evaluated, what does that look like, even like how many people were distinguished, how many people, so we can pull and take a look that way. So that's one way that we're able to, I mean, obviously, we're not looking at every single employee, but we can spot check and take a look at that. And then both Dr. Gaudioso and I meet with the principals on a regular basis. We hold, just like the teachers have goal-setting meetings, we hold those same meetings with our administrators. And so we have those regular checkpoints with the administrators. In addition to seeing them on a regular basis, we do have those checkpoints. They have to have these goals as well. As part of their goals, they have to have DEI goals in what they do. So it is layered in that respect.
So I understand all that. In the future for the data, I think there's an opportunity for us to see the ratings of the teachers compared to complaints or concerns that have been brought forward by teachers and students around DEI concerns, because there should not be a disconnect. And if there is, then we have some other things we need to dig into. You don't have to answer it.
No. And that, right. The work that we're doing, I just want to be clear that the one thing that we're not doing when we're talking about what Sarah's group is working on with the professional learning goals is we aren't measuring, we're not quantifying that as a measurement. We're quantifying it like, did you meet your goal? Are you getting to where you need to be? But we're not going to be using it in the Danielson rubric. We had that conversation, and we want teachers to actually try to grow. And so to actually put it into Danielson takes it to a whole other level that I think.
So you're not rating.
We're not rating them.
You're just using it as, that's an important.
We are not rating them.
That's an important distinction.
Yep, they are not being rated. They're setting the goals, and the way that we'll be measuring is if they achieve their goal or not, and the principals will have conversations with them, but it will not go into the Danielson rubric.
And is there any consideration to move to rating them in the future as a future goal of the committee in alignment with that expectation?
I think that there was a lot of conversation, and Sarah can talk to this, but the group decided that that wasn't the direction they wanted to go in because they wanted our employees to be able to grow and feel comfortable and confident in that ability. And when you leverage an evaluation on top of that, it really kind of stifles that, and that, I think, was the concern of the group. Am I misspeaking, Sarah? Yep.
So I think when we go back to the document from 2014, which is the Dr. Barbara Moore Williams document, I think what you see is that they're not separate things, right? So as we talk about classroom environment, we talk about planning, we talk about professionalism, right? DEI is embedded through that. It's not some separate thing that we have to add on. It's an inherent core to everything that our teachers do. And part of Danielson is about growth. It's a growth rubric and a growth model. And so our discussion here was the district has a very clear goal of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. We are employees of a district, and how are you working towards that goal, which is inherent and embedded in everything we do as a teacher, all 4 domains of the Danielson rubric. So our thought was embedding it back in that way, but calling it out as a specific point of discussion within the context of that goal setting. Just like we also call out, what is your PLC goal? How are you collaborating? How are you planning, your assessments in that way? And so there's, that was the intention of it. In fact, not to say that it's something that we're adding on or it's something new, but that it's core and inherent to what we do. Does that make sense?
Oh, I get it. I just think it's an important distinction for the community to take note of also, that when we talk about Danielson in this regard, that you're not holding the teachers accountable under the framework as stated with the more layered on. I get what you're saying. You're setting the goals and it's nuanced, but
okay,
I do think it's an important distinction because
I probably would want to talk with you more about that and maybe could invite you to come and talk with our group about that, because it could be that it's late. It could be that I'm just not seeing it in the same way, but I would want to talk with you about that because I don't think what we're attempting to do is to, let's just talk about it maybe a little bit more in a different way. So.
I can add on. And great questions thus far. And part of the challenge that we've had district-wide that I was able to bring out in a 100-day plan, some of it is around this very topic. One thing that we have to look at is, especially with mapping the evaluation tool onto growth, because Danielson sets it up that way, is filling out the tenor of our staff. One of the major concerns that came up, which is a good problem to have, we have, and I've been around a while now in this work since the 90s, we have one of the most future-forward curriculums, K-12, when focusing on DEIB. Now, with that said, when we start talking about materials and CP for kids, cultural proficiency for kids, and units of that nature, that's different than many districts in the Commonwealth. So as we're addressing this with our staff and we're saying these are our expectations, there is that element of fear if I don't get this right. And we are empowering the staff to be risk takers in this space. So this is a works in progress. How it looks system-wide and what's different, and why I'm, again, so encouraged and excited about this school year. The messaging is clear. The teachers and staff wanted clear messaging. We are even unpacking DEIB in terms of, still moving past diversity, equity, and inclusion. Is it simply cultural? Because, sometimes there are pundits on the internet, oh, there's no diversity in this picture. Similar to the question that Ms. Garrison asked, which was excellent. Are we looking to diversify our staff, our support staff and in our other areas? Our transportation department is like 50-50. Meanwhile, that provides us an opportunity for growth as we look at facilities and operations. So, we're constantly growing. So how this all comes together, how this all comes together is that what we've been hearing in all of these meetings, we hear different committees and different departments and different professionals within the organization are doing all of these things. We know that we have a lot of resources. How we are capturing it now, as we know from our school board professional development, our curriculum committee has undertaken the work of John Cotter's Accelerate, which gives us the dual operating systems pieces. Whereas, yes, we have to have management, which is traditional. Meanwhile, we still have to be focused on innovation, which is ever changing. And that's why you're hearing all of these pieces of ideas and all of these planets are, they're circling. While tradition is the administrivia of this work, the Earth moves very slow, but these other planets are moving very quickly. Looking at empowerment, efficiency, effectiveness, engagement, with our staff, this is stuff that is now part of the messaging, and they're extremely excited. So I'm thinking with the questions that are being asked this evening, as I went back and I talked about the session with the new teachers. And again, we do a great job of having a very diverse workforce in regards to abilities, professionalism, experiences. We're working on cultural diversity, gender identity. And so we were like, we had these discussions around some of these questions of what does it mean to be DEIB? What does it mean? And how can we be very public and overt with our messaging and on message? And we started to go into this discussion, and this is not me being esoteric or embellishing. We had staff members that stood up and said, yes, I can't believe we're doing this in Lower Merion. And I told the one staff member, brand new, I said, welcome home. Because they are positioned and they feel supported around this work. So we're growing together through all of this. The way that we get to true systems thinking, where this is 100%, we're fighting against complacency. This is a very, very good district. We could just rest on our laurels, stick with tradition. We're going to get good results. But to get to that piece of greatness is making sure that we're getting 100% of the students, making sure we're delving into these tough questions with our staff involved, where it's not simply top down. So the education and professional development is happening from the very top throughout the system. And it's going to take time to work it through, but we're hearing that the staff is very excited and they're feeling very empowered to go about this work and to reveal some of those fears and challenges so that we can work together. I'll end on this. In regards to Accelerate with John Cotter, just to give a visual image, in words, and how this looks, so that you're hearing all of these ideas come out of the different committees and the different board meetings, the different meetings that we have. There is a very overt approach to how we're going about this. So I'll capture it in the 8 accelerators from John Cotter, and this is coming from the superintendent's office throughout the system. And I'm just reading these for public consumption. Number 1, which we are very good at, we're creating the sense of urgency around the issues. These are valid issues. 2, what we've been hearing a lot of, and this is an accelerator, building coalition, and that was mentioned. These are coalitions with administrators, teachers, support staff, parents, community members, forming a strategic vision and initiatives. That's what we're hearing tonight, which is very common in a lot of the presentations that we've that we have gone through since I've been here. But now we're able to put a label on it. These are strategic initiatives. 4, enlist a volunteer army. The surveying and asking, and you're, again, as I started out the meeting earlier, we're seeking participants in these committees, actively seeking participants. Action by removing barriers, enable action by removing barriers. How we remove the barriers is recognizing the issues that exist within our system and looking to, how do we, and having discussions around how do we overcome it? How do we get better at this? How do we eventually embed these types of measures into evaluation per se? 6, which is very important, we have to generate short-term wins. Short-term wins, because what we're hearing, and this committee is indicative of this, AITF, there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work that goes into this. But it's not often that we sit back and say, hey, wait, we're more than proficient. Proficient should not be our ceiling. Proficiency for us should be the starting point. But we have to communicate more about the short-term wins. And a lot of the work that has been done to date, from the establishment of the Committee to Address Race in Education, that's 1997. Established Achievement Imperative Task Force, 2016. Ad Hoc Committee on Equity and Anti-Racism, 2020. Those are wins, because this structure does not exist everywhere in the Commonwealth. 7, sustain acceleration. So when we're good at something, we're going to continue to celebrate it, and we have to sustain it. So because the mindset was, we have an issue, we throw another resource. We have an issue, here's another resource. No, we have to see some of these ideas come to fruition and see them through. And then 8, this is the beauty of this, is, getting to a point where we are truly instituting change. And so from that framework, or the 8 accelerators of John Cotter, that's coming from our office, our office throughout the system, to whereas that's how we get through the system to get to student voice, where this thing all works together. So we are a works in progress, but we are an extraordinary works in progress, a great problem to have. So, it succinctly, I appreciate all of this discourse, especially the revealing of some of our gray areas, because putting them through this process, we'll be able to find solutions. And my hope is sustainable solutions. So I wanted to put that out there, that this is by design. This is by design, and we're going to be very public about it. So that I just wanted to make sure that, because a lot of things are coming out of this committee, wanted to make sure that it's understood, not around this table, but for the public, especially the public who's not present physically this evening, that there is a plan. There is a plan, and it's coming, and a lot of the plan is coming from the feedback that was given throughout the 100-day process, which includes the board, the community, the parents, the students. So this is by design, and it's exciting. It's exciting. But we're going to continue to grapple with some of these tough issues and not rest on our laurels and say, well, no other district has solved this issue. That's not, that's not even in our focus. If anybody can do it, we can do it. And that was the messaging for our staff. We have the resources, we have the human capital, we have the professionalism, we have the expertise, we have the parental engagement, we have the community engagement. Why not us? So that's the focus coming from this office throughout the system. So the messaging is a little different. The staff understands that the issues around DEI in practice and in hiring and et cetera, they know they exist because we have board policy. But the expectations now are more public. They're being talked about, not only from the superintendent's level, top-down management, but in the schools itself. That's why there are various teams that are being formed around these initiatives, so that perhaps the innovation may be moving faster in one building than the other. We want to learn from that practice, similar to how we were talking about restorative practices this evening. That's a full train-the-trainer model. And that's, we're embarking on, I mean, it's a tough thing, but we're embarking on it, and we're going to do it. Instead of simply having consultants come in, and then it takes us, when we're trying to accelerate this and do it in 3 years, 3 to 5 years, having consultants come in for the next 10 years for us to become proficient and restorative practices. So this is something that we're going to hear a lot of throughout the school year that will be consistent, that we're all in the same accord, but it's by design and a process.
Ms. Kalish.
Okay, I've got 3 questions. 2 are real quick hits. First, when we're talking about the parent and community engagement, are those liaisons, are they existing employees, people we're looking to hire, or community volunteers?
So the vision is that we are going to have, and again, this is something that the team developed last year. We had the opportunity to reflect and say, we have a new team member coming on board. Let's kind of talk it through and make sure this framework matches sort of the direction that we want to go, and this is the best way to do it. So that's still some conversation. The vision was that these would be volunteers in each of the schools, like a community or parent volunteer, who could be a liaison with the subcommittee. So still not in action yet and still in the draft form, but that's the idea.
I was purely curious because it wasn't clear. My next question is with the STEM programs that were geared at female students, and if those are open to trans, non-binary, and gender expansive students, and that's publicized?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, and my last question is for Dr. Naray, and was looking at your slide on your goals for, let me find it. This is my song for tonight, about increasing those percentages on your different benchmarks for hiring employees of color. And I was just wondering if there were strategies that you were using to do that, if maybe blind resumes or something was going forward on that, and just my own personal hope I would love to see some sort of mentoring for our students of color that exist in the district that would like to go into teaching, because I would just love to see our alumni come back and teach. And if we have students of color that are interested in teaching, we want to keep them and support them in going to college and then coming right back to us.
Yes, to all that, yes.
Okay.
We've had so much, really exciting conversation about thinking creatively. I don't think this is a surprise, but just hiring any educators, challenging. Hiring educators of color is incredibly challenging. Hiring Black educators, there's just so much research about like the exodus of Black educators leaving the state of Pennsylvania. We've tried looking at collaborating with experts that network and build some of those kind of developments of students, Black students looking to enter the field of education, trying to see how do we foster that internally. We're looking to get ideas from others. So there's a lot that we're still considering. It is kind of tricky to kind of navigate, but we're open to ideas. But we have considered that. If there are folks that have great ideas, that we're open to any suggestions at this point. But we're trying to be nimble and creative and really foster our own kind of internal development, because it's hard to find.
Yeah, I asked purely because I know you're like pushing a big rock up a hill in terms of the gargantuan task that your committee and the district at large trying to hire anybody right now, frankly. If you can drive a school bus, please call us. So I respect any and everything you're doing, and I know it's a hard lift, and if there's any way we can be of service, please let us know.
And Ms. Kalish brings up a great point, and this is an area where my dissertation was in this area, and outdated, but some of the tools are still valid. And what our greatest tool, our greatest ambassadors are our employees. One of the greatest success stories that I love to talk about, because it happened by chance. We have Dr. Olafemi over at LM. I just happened to be at Villanova participating in a conference, their WISE program. Dr. Olafemi came up to talk to me afterwards. We spoke. He said, "Man, I really would love to work in Lower Merion one day." I said, "Well, keep your eye on the job board. We had no jobs at the time. We had no administrative positions at the time." Dr. McGloin came to me excited. With all administrators, I get the final interview. And I'm looking at this name. I said, "Wait a minute. I think I know Olufemi. And he came in and I said, whoa, this is unbelievable. He said, well, after I spoke to you, I wanted to work in Lower Merion. I said, well, thank you. He said, you're going over to the high school, you're with Mike Johnson, Mr. Johnson. I said, that's going to be a great opportunity for you. But the staff itself, and that's one of the pieces in recruitment that we're looking at working on. The staff as ambassadors is probably our most valuable tool because, especially for, which came out in the research and in my personal experiences, there's an interview process and then there's the B side to the interview process. And most of the questions that are asked, why do you want to hire me? Is it because you're trying to check a box? Or will I be a part, will I have opportunities to be a part of the culture of the district? Will there be opportunities for leadership? Will I be in a position where I'm not in a situation where it's cultural taxation and things of that nature? So the B sides of the interview process happens with the ambassadors, and we're embarking upon that. And that's why, as Dr. Nure has stated a few times this evening, the opportunity for us to have our own recruitment affair here at Lower Merion, where we're doing tours around the district and we're interviewing, they're able to speak with employees of color, that will help us tremendously. And I like it because I get to sit back, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, but the heavy lifting is done with HR and Megan Schaefer and with our ambassadors in our buildings. And they're committed to do this work. So hopefully we'll see these numbers move a little bit more. It's almost, and as I look at education, I look at it global. And for us to have our new teachers in a room, and we are close to having all of our positions filled while there are shortages right around us, it's inspiring. It's inspiring, and we want to know what's happening. How are we able to attract employees? It's not salary. In all of the studies around recruitment, salary doesn't keep a professional. It's the feeling and the relationship and the community of stakeholders that keep teachers here, and the culture and the focus on social and emotional development and support. So we're working at building stronger networks around those areas where our staff feel empowered and comfortable to tell those real stories behind the interview process, and the real stories that I will not share this evening around when applicants ask questions and I say, this is why we need you here. So especially from my vantage point with the administrators, I'm able to say, this is why you're going to this building, and this is why we need you here with your set of experiences, your background, and your diversity. So, we're being very, again, very overt in our recruitment efforts, and it's only going to get better. Yes, ma'am.
When we say people of color, who are we talking about? Like, because that just means non-white people, so people of color can be, Japanese, Chinese, Mexican, Black. Who are we talking about?
All.
Okay.
Because as the narrative, and that's why the term BIPOC is important. And for us also with some of the professional development, especially conducted by Jeannie Stanley, Dr. Stanley, with our new teachers, where we were challenging ourselves. We said, is DEIB simply about ethnicity or hue? We have diversity that cannot be seen by face value, and we have to advertise that more, meaning, amplify that more, not advertise, amplify that more. In regards to the teacher shortage, yes, there's a focus on African American or African American Black teachers in the classrooms. There's more of a shortage when looking at our diverse population of students, and this is something that you have, if you know. We are one of the most diverse, culturally diverse districts in the Commonwealth. We're a 60-40 district. Therefore, when we're saying educators of color, it's Black, it's Asian, Latino, we have to run the gamut. We have to run the gamut, and so we're going at it full speed ahead. And again, and I have lots of colleagues in the Commonwealth, and we engage in these discussions. I say, man, we're filling our positions, and that B side to the interview process where we can't publicly state it, but I can say, oh wow, this is how diverse our staff is. Personal identifiers that exceed beyond race. So we're looking at all. But again, God bless you. And again, it's a huge challenge, but we're going at it full speed ahead. And very appreciative we have a supportive community and board around this. And staff. Bless you.
So sorry, I didn't mean to-
Bless you.
Do we have a relationship with Sharif El-Mekki, who has a pipeline of African-American teachers?
He's my friend, and he's
He's also my friend.
Yes.
And so is his brother.
Yes, and he's a parent. He's a parent.
I know.
Yes, and Sharif and I have, we're closely connected via another friend,
Okay.
and we've been corresponding. He's done a lot of work nationally. We've been corresponding, and his focus, his major focus is on the urban centers, but his
Rightfully so.
rightfully so. However, his what I would say white papers that he produces, I text him and let him know, hey, I'm using this. Do you need me in any way? And he's been very responsive as always. I mean, he's excellent for thinking of globally for the profession. So yes, Sharif's a good advocate for us and a parent, which is beautiful.
All right, thank you. Ms. Sotner?
For science, and I bet you could answer these in one word. How long will you know until the middle school program actually affects the STEM summer program, supports the girls in it to be able to go through high school and really make an impact?
So I don't know if that's a one-word answer.
I was just hoping you'd say 4 years, 2 years.
Yeah. With this being the first year, the first summer we've had this, we're hoping to see some of that carry over into the ninth grade, especially computer science this year is somewhere that we're going to look and really focus on and see if it had an impact, because the goal is that that group of students, we go back to belonging, right? That group of students who were together for that summer experience, they come out the other side, and we had more and more kids at the end say, how do I sign up for this? How do I get into a class like this at the high school? So we had kids asking how to sign up. So this year, we'll start to look at some of those numbers to see if it had an impact. I think what we're hoping to see is over the 2, 3, 4 years, is those numbers keep growing, and we see that gap close every year for the next several years.
Great. And then are you looking at what is, if that's successful, will you be looking at what is working in the summer program to try to apply it to the middle school and elementary school level to say, ooh, look at this is the secret sauce in the summer. How do we build that during the school year?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
That's absolutely the goal.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you all very, very much for sharing your time and your expertise this evening is much appreciated. We are going to move on in our agenda. Next on the agenda is additional agenda items. We do not have any. So the next piece of our agenda is audience recognition. At this time, Ms. LaPera will open the chat feature, and you will see a 10-minute timer appear on your screen. You can submit your comments and/or questions via the chat feature. Please be sure to begin with your full name and where you reside within the district in order for your comment to be shared. And that is true for those providing public in-person comment as well. Please make sure you share your name and where in the district you live. Ms. LaPera, do we have any in-person comments for tonight's meeting?
I say somebody's been having public comment.
Sweet.
Yeah, it takes a village, so my son is going to be raised by the village right now.
Okay.
I'm
Go ahead.
Abigail Rubin from Ballykinwood. So I'm going to be concise as best I can. First, I just want to say thank you, and as usual, for making this available to everybody to kind of engage and interact with one another. Lines of communication being open is wonderful. So my first question is regarding full-day kindergarten. This is all about full-day kindergarten. Not that everything else wasn't very important, but that's my main focus. So first I want to just reiterate that our group is here. We are still really passionate and really want to be as engaged as possible. We are at your disposal. Please call on us. This is not an empty promise. Our Facebook group is growing. We're here. So please feel, as we do to you, please feel accessible, or we are accessible to you. That's what I'm trying to say. Second of all, if you can explain or give us an idea of when we can actually hope to be engaged in the subcommittee. I know, September is here, and we'd love to have a date in mind. And then I'll just keep asking. Okay. The next thing is how you anticipate, or how you're going to be reaching out to parents of preschool-aged children for the survey. I am one of those parents, as well as having a child in the district, and haven't heard yet, so I speak on behalf of many people. The last thing I wanted to ask about was, I think I'll end there. So just basically the survey and the committee.
I'll move it to Dr. McGloin, as we've had meetings in regards to the planning and surveying of potential committee members and participants. So have Dr. McGloin delve into the details.
Sure. So we anticipate the letter going out to invite people to apply to be on the committee in the next few days. Our first meeting we're anticipating happening probably the first week of October.
Okay.
Yeah. And we're hoping to have the survey out in October as well. It's a really good question on how we're going to engage with preschool parents, and that's something that we want to really have a conversation with parents about that are going to be on the committee to talk about what could that look like and how do we get the best response, because it's a difficult yin-yang on that. So that'll be part of the conversation that we have. I don't have a set answer. I think we kind of want to solicit some thoughts from people first. We know where the preschools are. We just want to make sure we're not missing any. But on top of that, how do we actually make that happen would be one of the questions. So October, first week of October would be the first meeting, and then we're looking to have that survey out in October as well.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
And last question I just realized I wanted to ask about is, since the modular units are no longer going to be at Marion, space is still going to be an issue. So how that's going to be considered, even though we have Black Rock with the fifth grade moving out there, which is great, how are we going to make space for the kindergarten, which we all anticipate is going to be a large number of kids. So just want to put that in the atmosphere of questions.
I know over the summer that there was a lot of work within facilities looking at class sizes, grade sizes, and things like that. So that work has started, and the staff is working on that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, we also just commissioned a new enrollment study. So when those numbers come in, we'll have a better idea of what kind of space.
Do you have an idea of when that will be?
I
when
don't
it's
recall
due?
the dates off the top of my head. They're starting soon. We should get the data probably within a few months, but I can follow up with you with a more exact date.
I think that info would be on the meeting notes for last month's facilities meeting, right? On the agenda? Did I make that up?
The due date. Thank you.
Dr. McGloin, I'm sorry. Dr. McGloin, do the surveys also, will the other stakeholders in the community be incorporated in that as well, or just parents who have kindergarten children?
In the survey?
Yeah, like the survey.
Yeah, so I think we haven't exactly figured out it depends on what we ask in the survey. And so I can't give you a set answer until we make and establish exactly what we want to ask. Depending on the question, we may open it up to all kindergarten, all parents beyond kindergarten or below kindergarten, but maybe not. It just really depends. And so I don't have a set answer for that.
Okay.
Yep.
Jill Altschuler, and then Katrine Fantini.
Oh, sure.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Katrine, and I'm from... Sure. Katrine Fantini from Narberth. I'm just going to read my question from my thing, because I get nervous in front of people. I just want to thank you all for your work and your effort in the school district, and I really enjoyed listening to all the presentations tonight regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion, and integrating technology in the curriculum for students. I feel it's also important to live by those values and take action in a way where parents, guardians, and community members can participate and be able to partake in conversations with you all about important issues and questions they may have, both in person and virtually. And I was wondering, what can we look forward to seeing from you all in regards to access and participation, both in person and virtually, for all board committee meetings, even the ones, like the ones there was one that was held last week. Not like clearly tonight people have access and can participate online, but there was a board meeting last week where those kind of things aren't available. So I was wondering, what do we have to look forward to from you, like seeing from you to kind of incorporate those kinds of things into other meetings as well?
Thank you so much. At a previous meeting, we mentioned that at the time, the board was going into a board professional development session, and one of the topics is part of the subject matter that you discussed now, which is around access and having different forms of meetings. In-person meeting, will it be recorded? Zoom meetings like ad hoc, they're recorded. And so we are planning, along with the board and the administration, we're planning to pilot those activities via the communications meeting and also ad hoc just to start to bring this stuff to fruition. So it's on the immediate horizon. I anticipate, and again, this is preliminary. I anticipate next week that the board will have a full discussion around these areas, and again, but implement a pilot so that we can work out some of the kinks as necessary to bring some of these ideas, because we've been hearing the public loud and clear in regards to having these having various ways to attend a meeting. Now, one of the things that I have to say publicly and celebrate is that our process, the board's process of having committee meetings and then a full board meeting, those aren't requirements. The committee meetings are not requirements under school code, so that's one leap. The second leap is how to address some of the inclusivity issues or matters that the public has brought forward. So a pilot is forthcoming.
Okay. So we should see something within like the next year, hopefully?
No. This school year.
This school year?
This school year, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So as right now, the dialogue, and again, for the board, this is ideas coming out of our discussions from the school board professional development, which the full board, we're going to look at, the superintendent along with the full board will look at our options and see how we're going to pilot this so that we can take data, so that we can, if there are any issues, how we can use these pilots to make us more efficient with this communication. But it's forthcoming and soon. Not next year, this school year.
That's very exciting to hear. Thank you very much.
No,
Have
my
a good
pleasure.
evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. I also want to plug, I guess, there are Ask the Superintendent meetings. I think there's one coming up this week or next week in person. They alternate during the week and then also on weekends throughout the school year. And those are really great opportunities to speak with the superintendent. So just as a reminder, our role as a board is governance and sort of strategic direction, and then the day-to-day operation and the management of the district falls under the administration. So I just wanted to point that out and give a plug for the Ask the Superintendent's meetings.
And now we have Jill Altschuler.
My 3-minute timer or my phone's gonna die. Jill Altschuler from Marion Station. Okay, I am like overwhelmed with joy to hear what you just had to say. Thank you. And in terms of the committees for the full-day kindergarten, but more for, from my perspective, the wellness committee, I love that you said that there's going to be, the parents who are, or community members who are not selected to be on the committee. There will definitely be a way for communication outside of that. So I'm hoping, I don't know if that means that the people who are selected to be on the committee will have, will be anonymous, the way it kind of was with the equity advisory team, because it just felt weird, for lack of a better way to say it. Do you know what I mean?
I just wanted to point out that the people that were on the equity advisory team, that was not anonymous. We actually went through the names at a meeting.
I don't think anyone knew the names of people on the equity advisory team.
It wasn't published on the website, but it was discussed in a meeting at one of the.
I know, but like these meetings are really hard for parents to access. I mean, in terms of, for various reasons, I feel like more than board meetings need, sending out emails is another way. I just feel like there needs to be multiple avenues of communication of certain information. And okay, so that was one thing. And the other thing, one of the other things, the AITF. I mean, so much work, obviously, and I feel like, again, many parents either don't have the time or whatever to attend board meetings, live streaming in person, watching the recordings, whatever. How can we get the word out about, it's so much of the district is, the work is through the AITF, and it's amazing, and I feel like really hardly anyone knows about it. So I'm hoping that there's a way. 1 minute. And then another thing, what should I choose? In terms of another way, in terms of communication with the community, parents, caregivers, can we think about maybe doing some sort of community forums or something like that to, have a topic that people might want, cultural proficiency or AITF or anything about DEI? I feel like, those are just some random off the top. There's so many things that I feel like parents might want to, and caregivers and community members might want to hear more about in a way that's like, if it's posed less as a board meeting and more of like a community type forum. I know there's something coming up through Box Lunch and a Book, but more coming from us rather than from an outside thing. That's it. Enough. Thank you.
Perfect timing. Thank you very much.
That's it for the public comment, in person, sorry.
Ms. Buckman will now read the the comments submitted via chat. I want to just remind that the school board, the district policy is that you must be a resident of the district to either speak publicly or submit public comment.
The first comment is from Dr. Pam, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced his name, Pojamovsky McDonald of Wynwood. Thank you for bringing up full day K in the beginning of the meeting. I hope that we can move forward swiftly in helping make full day K a reality as soon as possible, ideally September 2023. We are here to help, as mentioned earlier. Thanks again. Looking forward to working together. The next comment is from Wilson Chong of Ballackinwood. I do not understand a single thing spoken about in this meeting about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Speaker after speaker said words that meant nothing. The superintendent of this school board, after being asked what people of color actually meant, responded with all. Nothing could make less sense than that. There was one other comment, but I don't believe the person submitting the comment is a district resident.
Thank you very much, Ms. Buckman. Finally, on our agenda for this evening, our upcoming meeting dates. On September 15th, Thursday, is the Facilities and Purchasing Committee meeting at 8:30 in the morning here in the boardroom. Next Monday is a regular business board meeting, again, 8 p.m. here in the boardroom. And then September 28th is a Communications Committee meeting, and that will be at 7 p.m. I hope you all are ready for your back-to-school nights. I know the elementary ones, I believe, start this week. Wednesday night is the Committee for Special Education's Part 1 of Advocacy 101. It is via Zoom. You can find information in your HSA newsletters. That is this Wednesday, and then Part 2 will be on Tuesday, October 11th. Keep your eye out for upcoming ISC meetings, and please do attend the Ask the Superintendent if you'd like a one-on-one opportunity to ask some questions and have some dialogue. So thank you all very much. This meeting is adjourned.